Hello everybody, it's Uncle Matt, and I'm here to read you another bedtime story. Happy Canada Day. And today I'm going to read you Carson Crosses Canada. It's by Linda Bailey and Kass Reich. This story was copyright in 2017. Are you ready? Here we go. It's better. Annie Magruder and her little dog, Carson, lived in the town of Tofino. Every day they walked beside the great Pacific Ocean. They loved the salt air, they loved their red house, and they loved their sweet life together. Then one day Annie got a letter. "Pack your suitcase," she told Carson. "My sister Elsie's sick, and she needs some cheering up." Carson didn't have a suitcase, but got very excited when Squeaky Chicken went into the car. Annie packed camping gear and dog food. She filled a cooler with bologna sandwiches. Then she and Carson piled into the car and drove east. All morning they drove in the rattle-bang car. Carson scratched at the door. Were they there yet? "Oh no," said Annie. "It's a very long way, all the way across Canada. But there's a surprise when we get there. For you, Carson." Carson loved surprises. Squeaky Chicken had been a surprise. Every time Carson chewed, he got a brand new noise. Skee-wee-zee! On they drove, along twisty roads, through mountains as high as the sky. "The Rockies," said Annie. "If we were younger, we could climb them." "Rough," said Carson. "You're right," said Annie. "It would be rough." That night she put up their tent in the woods. Carson watched out for bears. No bears came, but Carson was ready. They rolled on down to the land of lumpy humps. "Hoodoos," said Annie. "This is dinosaur country." When Carson saw the giant bones, he got very excited. Was this his surprise? But before he could take a single bite, Annie dragged him away. "Settle down, boy," she said. Carson had never managed a bone could get that big. Next day, the land flattened out. Grain grew in carpets, yellow, blue, gold. "Oh my," said Annie when they stopped for lunch. "Will you look at all the sky?" But Carson was looking at the ground. There were grasshoppers everywhere. It took most of his lunchtime to catch one. He ate it for dessert. The next day was a scorcher. That's what Annie said. The sun beat hard on the highway. Carson drooped all over. When he saw the lake, he was so happy, he tried to leap out the window. Annie held him back. "Hold on, boy," she said. Soon they were both in Lake Winnipeg. Carson dog-paddled up to Annie and gave her a lick on the nose. For one cool, one blue moment, they were exactly the same size. After that, there were days of rocks and trees. Carson thought the trees would never end. He barked and barked out the window. Where was his surprise? Annie gave him a pat. It's still a long way to Elsie's. That night, they listened to the loons. "Oh my," said Annie. Canada, such a great land to cross. And then came a grand sight indeed. A wall of water thundering down a cliff. Carson yapped in amazement. He was used to water that stayed flat. He and Annie watched till they were soaked all over. Then Annie went to buy a souvenir of Niagara Falls. Carson found a grassy spot and left a little souvenir of his own. Next came a lively old city where people called Carson a chien. That's dog in French, whispered Annie. They sat at a cafe and ordered a pie filled with pork. It was called a tortilla. Carson didn't care what it was called as long as it had meat. He ate that pie in 2 bites. And still they kept on driving. Carson was half asleep when Annie let out a yell. Look, the Atlantic Ocean. Carson jumped up and ran right to the water's edge. It smelled like ocean back home. He sat with Annie and watched the tide go out. It left a sea of mud as far as the eye could see. Oh no, cried Annie suddenly. Carson, don't you dare! But Carson couldn't help himself. He rolled all over the seabed. Best mud ever! The next day they crossed to an island of red and green, just like a postcard, said Annie. She stopped at a beach to buy lobster rolls. Carson ate his in 1 gulp. We're getting close, said Annie. I hope you'll like your surprise. But Carson knew what he'd really like. Annie's lobster roll. Yum. We're almost there, said Annie as they left the island. In the campground that night, there was fiddle music, so friendly and fast it made everybody dance. Annie clapped and jigged. Carson chased his tail. Tomorrow, whispered Annie as they snuggled in their tent. The rattle-bang car drove onto a ferry. And at last they were finally there. A house stood waiting beside the ocean. It was red like the house back home. Out came a woman who looked like Annie. Her steps were slow, but her smile was as wide as the sea. Oh, my dear, cried Elsie, and she hugged Annie hard. I am some glad to see you. I am some glad to see you. The hugging went on for a very long time. Carson let out a yip. Oh, said Annie, do you want your surprise? Look, there he is. A surprise. Carson stared. His surprise was a dog who looked so much like Carson. It was like looking into a mirror. It's your brother, said Annie. Digby, do you remember? Carson barked with delight. This was even better than Squeaky Chicken. Carson hadn't seen his brother since they were pups. He couldn't believe how handsome Digby had grown. As they unpacked the rattlebang car, Elsie smiled. She said seeing Annie and Carson was the best medicine in the world. In the days that followed, they walked together beside the great Atlantic Ocean, Annie and Elsie, Carson and Digby. They loved the salt air, they loved the red house, and they loved their sweet time together. It was grand. The end. Well, that's all the time we have for Uncle Matt's bedtime story. I hope you enjoyed that story, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.